Hello, MJ Clemenco here, psychotherapist and life coach. Tonight I'd like to talk about coping mechanisms. When we're children and we have a problem, let's say we have a violent parent, or parents are always fighting, or parents are violent to you, the child, uh, a child may learn to use humor to uh, hopefully uh, defuse the situation. Um, there are other kinds of coping mechanisms. I'm thinking that one of the coping mechanisms for a troubled childhood also is eating. Now, as an adult, you may know that you eat to self-soothe. That's a pretty common term. But you didn't know you were developing that coping mechanism when you were a child. You just ate to feel better. Food was comfort. If you became the funny guy or the funny girl because your parents wouldn't stop fighting, uh, that was a coping mechanism. If you withdrew, if you had a violent parent or a fighting household, or were molested or some other type of violence or prolonged stress, you maybe learned to just go to your room and be quiet and hope that you were left alone. And those are all brilliant ways for children to stay safe or try to stay safe and to try to take care of themselves. The problem is that we don't know we're making them. No child knows that they're eating is a coping mechanism to self-soothe when things are troubled at home, or that being the funny person is a way to try to defuse a situation. They just automatically do it and they don't think about it. And there are many other coping mechanisms. Those are just three that I can think of off the top of my head. The problem with coping mechanisms, all coping mechanisms, is that they fail in adulthood. And since we didn't know we made them, we didn't know when we or why we developed them, we don't know that they're residing in our subconscious minds. But we may be told that a joke we just made wasn't funny, and maybe it was in the middle of a serious conversation, and you thought, well, you were just being a little lighter about it. You weren't trying to be disrespectful. You were just trying to lighten up the situation. Or you're feeling very worried about your job and you don't know whether you're going to get laid off, and you eat half a quart of ice cream or a whole quart of ice cream. You're not recognizing that you developed that way to cope when you were a child, and it no longer works for you because you probably have gained quite a bit of weight. And no, I don't believe in diets, but that's another talk. Um, Withdrawing. If you and your partner have an argument, or somebody's angry at somebody in the place you're staying or where you're living, you might find yourself just going to a corner and reading a book, being quiet, or you may be in an argument with your partner and not want to talk anymore. Just want it to stop. You just want to be quiet, and your partner becomes more and more frantic because they want to talk and they're saying, why won't you talk to me? Why can't we talk about this? And you just don't want to talk about it. You don't want to talk about it because when you were a kid, if you talked about it, it would probably get worse. What you needed to do when you were a kid was be quiet and get out of the way. So, as an adult, whatever coping mechanisms you're using were brilliant when you were a child, but you didn't think about making them. You just made them. Children are incredible. They're survivors, and they will do what it takes to survive. As adults, we don't think about those kinds of things because we aren't doing them consciously. I mean, nobody wants to eat to the point of obesity. Nobody wants to withdraw so their partner just becomes more and more frantic. Nobody wants to upset people by making jokes when the situation isn't funny. Um, so that's something for you to think about. What are your coping mechanisms? When you were a child and you were in a tough situation, if you were in that situation more than once or over time, you probably survived by doing certain things or not doing certain things. And if you can figure out what they are and how they apply to you today, then you can make a choice about whether or not you want to do them. And that's what's really important. Having choices, understanding why we're doing things, where that behavior is coming from. So we can choose to stop doing them or we can choose to continue doing them. But at least we're more aware of ourselves and we're more aware of why our partner or whomever we're talking to is having not so good a reaction to it. So it sounds simplistic, but if you think about how many coping mechanisms there probably are, depending on the child and the situation, or just think about the ones that you become aware of in yourself. Maybe there's only one, but it doesn't work. It doesn't work anymore. And that's what's really important for you to know. You survived as a kid, and that's great, but you're not doing so well as an adult because you have coping mechanisms in place that you don't know about, and they're getting in your way. So think about it, and if you need to, talk to someone about it. Good night.